Well, when Jimmy comes into town, he's bringing some of his equipment, and he has like some stuff he could use. He has a cannon.
A cannon?
Not a boom, but like a tick tick.
I was fairly certain that he wasn't going to be bringing an actual cannon. That would probably be kind of difficult to get
It's on the
in town.
no-fly list.
Pretty sure cannons are on the no-fly list, except if you're in like the military, in which case then you probably have a cannon mounted on your jet. That's a little different. Welcome to A Spirited Life. I'm Mark.
I'm Christine. This week we are going to be having our monthly recap, what we had planned for last month, and how did it go?
We're also going to be reviewing a whiskey from the OHLQ Cask and Craft event, which brought several different new Irish whiskeys to Ohio. And we'll also talk about what filled our spirits this week. We want to live a spirited life. We're documenting our journey towards financial independence while balancing that with living in the present and enjoying our time in the journey. While we want to work towards financial independence, there's no guarantee for what tomorrow will bring. So we don't want to wait to enjoy our lives because tomorrow isn't promised. We want to share our journey to help keep ourselves intentional and accountable, and we invite you to come along with us as we work towards living a spirited life. So as a part of our episodes each week, we like to review a whiskey from our collection. This past week, OHLQ, which is the governing body over spirits in the state of Ohio, ran a special event called the Irish Cask and Craft event. And that brought a variety of new Irish whiskeys and also gins to Ohio. And so we had an opportunity as a part of that to go out and spend a little bit of time, have a few samples of this, the various different types of whiskeys that they had. And I think we brought home some winners in terms of some of the things that we tried.
Yeah, it was great. We brought home a lot of great bottles. We also were able to actually meet the distillers.
Mm-hmm.
They had them come in, so you actually met the people and their product.
And one of those bottles is the Clonakilty that if you're watching on YouTube, you can see here. This is an Irish whiskey that is brought to us from Clonakilty. It is part of their Cask Finished series, and this particular one was finished in port casks. And so just to talk a little bit about Clonakilty, one of the cool things that they did was they gave us these little booklets that gives you a little bit of information about each one of the different distilleries, and also talks about, where they are in Ireland and some of the different influences. So for Clonakilty, they talked about on the windswept southern coast of Ireland. The Scully family has farmed their land for 9 generations. The prime land, pristine water, and salt sea air give a different flavor to their barley, which they grow themselves and source from nearby farms. Every batch of the Maritime Distillery's single pot still whiskey is uniquely Irish and spicy.
I'm sorry, I was just visioning myself in Ireland while you were speaking.
Yeah, and it's cool because they actually have a picture right here showing where the distillery is, literally right on the coast.
On the edges of the cliffs.
Cool.
One day I'll get there. Have a drink right on the edge.
Yeah. All right, so let's go ahead. Let's delve into this. Let's see what we got on the nose here. Definitely get some of those traditional Irish notes.
The citrusy, the fruity.
Citrusy, fruity, buttery.
Mm-hmm. When you get like an underlying of the barley.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a little bit of the grain notes underneath. You definitely get some of the port influence on the nose too.
Mm-hmm.
You can get a little bit of that wine finish.
Cheers. Sláinte.
Sláinte.
It's an Irish. It's got that. It's like the stone fruity, like the peach.
Mm-hmm.
Peachish, apricotish.
Yeah.
Up front, it's light. It's crisp. You get the wine, the port finish.
Yeah, definitely a lot of good characteristics that you normally get on the Irish. I do agree that there is that nice stone fruit note, like a peach or apricot type note up front. Very approachable. It's 43.6% by volume, so not gonna blow your palate out or anything along those lines. I would say that it overall is very light and pleasant on the palate.
Mm-hmm. It's very crisp. To me, it's very springy.
Mm-hmm. Now that I've had a second nosing on it, I'm starting to get some of the other notes, like the shortbread notes and some of that butteriness that you get. I would say that overall the port influence on this is not overly strong.
It's very mild.
Very mild, which I appreciate. It's not overdone. It's not overworked. It really still allows the grain and the whiskey to speak. It just kind of adds like a nice little enhancement to it.
And what would you say the ABV was?
She asks as I take a sip.
ABV. I turned it. I was going to read it.
You did.
So 43.6 ABV.
There's certainly something to be said for the approachability of lower proof whiskeys. And like this is a really good example of a nice, rich, flavorful whiskey that is a little bit lower proof, may not have some of the agitation that you might get from some of the higher proof whiskeys in terms of your esophagus or your stomach, those types of things.
Yeah, I mean, it's lower proof and all that, but it's still very enjoyable.
Absolutely.
I could still sit here. It's not like I'm going to be shooting it back. It's still something that, like, it's a nice sippable whiskey. I could see drinking this on the patio with a spring shower.
Yeah, I could definitely see that this will be one of our whiskeys that we'll have out ready to enjoy during the spring here. Just a little hint of some berry, a little bit more of the darker fruits, things like that. Not real strong, but it is there. It's kind of like an underlying tone. And again, with the port finish, not terribly surprising to be getting a little bit of that. Overall, really enjoyable, really great. And if you find yourself in Ohio, would highly recommend picking some of this up. And if not, if you're out and about and you're able to find something from Clonakilty, I'd recommend giving it a shot. So you're talking a little bit about drinking this as a part of heading into spring. And as a part of heading into spring, that means that February has gone and we're into March now, which means we need to do our monthly check-in for the end of the month. So let's delve in on February. Let's talk a little bit about how we did on our goals. Let's talk about how we did on our adjustments, trying to make sure that we were hitting things intentionally the way that we wanted to. Let's talk about how things did or didn't work. And let's talk about what adjustments we want to make coming into the month of March to help support getting to the outcomes the way that we want to.
Yeah, my February was a 50-50 February.
Okay.
I started out, well, I also wasn't working full-time or even semi-part-time for the first 2 weeks.
Okay.
So it was easy to kind of refresh. So my morning stretches, I got that down pat. My journaling and or planning my day and or the week, I got done in the morning because I didn't have to feel like I was rushing into work. So my February was good that way. Then I started going into work on an almost 4 to 5 days a week.
Yep.
And it's an hour different than I'm normally used to going into a work.
Okay.
So that's where my hiccup ended up with my morning planning. I stopped tracking daily. I stopped writing out a rough idea of what I wanted to accomplish in a day.
Yep.
But I still stretched in the morning.
Okay, good.
My workout increased when I went to work, though.
Okay.
Because there's literally a gym in the building that I work in. So I just have to walk downstairs. So even if it's gross out or what, I have literally no excuse. And there's also a track on the inside. So even if I don't want to go work out, I could go walk on the track for my half hour, 45-minute break. My gardening is getting there. I'm getting really excited about my gardening.
Yeah.
My seedlings are going.
Plants have been popping up.
You got me a wonderful book.
Yep.
That I really, just in reading the first few chapters, got me really excited. So that's going strong. Now I'm on to my next phase of that, getting ready for March.
Before we move on to too much more, I want to take a minute and talk a little bit about something that you talked about there, which was a disruption to your system. And when there was a disruption, that caused you to start to miss on some of the things that you were working on.
Correct.
And so you had done a good job of giving yourself time and making space to be doing your goal planning and everything like that, and being able to talk through some of those things and work through some of those things and make sure that you were ticking things off and you had the time to do it. And then all of a sudden, when your schedule changed and you had that disruption to your system, it then started impacting your ability to get some of those things done and the quality of you being able to meet some of the things that you were working on. Although it did certainly help in other ways because that other disruption gave you the ability to go work out and made that a little bit easier. But you started missing out on some of the other things like checking in and making sure that you had done that. And I think that this is important to talk about is that when there's a disruption to your system, to pay attention to how your intentionality gets affected by that.
I agree. Yeah, I actually had yesterday and today in getting ready for noting kind of things to talk about. I went, I really need to catch myself on this before I go too far down not doing my intentions that I have to almost like start back over again.
Yeah. And so you have to still then say, okay, I had designed this to work in a particular way, and I designed that while I didn't have to go to work. And it was working really well when I didn't have to do that. But now all of a sudden I needed to start going into work, and the time and space that I had made to do that checking in and to tick things off and make sure that I was setting up a plan for the day, like that went away. And then you didn't necessarily make that adjustment right away to make sure that you were still getting the outcome that you wanted. So that's something that I just wanted to highlight and focus on and just acknowledge that that happens to a lot of people. If you've ever heard where people talk about, I started a workout routine and then I got sick. Then I did the workout routine for like 6 months and then I got sick, and it was a bad sickness, and I stopped working out for a couple weeks.
Yeah, I preaching to the choir over here.
Yeah. Getting back into that routine, back into that habit after it's been disrupted that way can be difficult at times. And so that's one of the things that I wanted to talk a little bit about, just since you were bringing up a perfect example of that. And it's like, this is normal. This happens when we have those disruptions of the system. But it is for us to take a look back and say, hey, okay, that disruption happened. How do I need to adjust? How do I need to change? How do I need to make sure that I'm getting back to those good outcomes that I was getting to or that I want, and maybe have to do a little bit of redesign. So did you do any of that?
I have not found a good time yet. I thought I was going to be able to figure out how to cram it all in and not have to really adjust things. But actually, I'm hoping we talk more about this later and the next steps. But I had a moment where I'm like, okay, I can't keep doing what I'm doing now with my new work hours and things and still maintain what I wanted to do. So something has to change.
Right.
So I have, I set myself a deadline by the end of this upcoming weekend to kind of have a plan. Like what is it that I really want? Why do I really want it? How am I going to really get it done? And then what the next steps are.
Yeah.
And realizing I might actually have to change some of my habits and patterns around that, because obviously work is kind of set.
Yeah.
So I have to realize, okay, so what do I really want?
Right.
And what am I willing to do to get that? And if I don't make the changes, will I be okay with not accomplishing the different goals? Like, planning out my day in the morning,
right,
journaling, and I added a few more different things to try to help me accept that I can't keep doing what I used to be doing. And then finding a level of comfortableness and or drive to change my habits and my routines to help me change my lifestyle choices.
Yeah. If I summarize what I think you need to do, and by the way, this connects into something that I need to do also. So you're going to draw a parallel here, which is to redesign and recommit. So you did an initial design and it was working for you, but then you had this disruption. You need to take the time to redesign how you want this to work so that you can get to the outcomes, and then recommit to making that a new habit.
Can I just say, I love, you said redesign and recommit. Those are 3 words. I got a whole full page that you just summarized in 2 words.
Well, I just listened to you and I kind of summarized what you said.
I'm like, oh.
Yeah. But the reason why I also know that, and we'll delve into this in a minute because I do want to come back to some of the other things you were going to talk about.
So I feel like you could also relate to the redesigning and
I
recommitting.
I can talk about and relate to the redesign and recommit. We'll get to that in a minute. So, but finish talking about your thing. So you had the garden.
Yeah, I had the garden. I'm getting really excited. I think I'm learning how to manage myself and set myself up for success so I don't get overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also have to remind myself, like, I can't have it immediately. Like, these are plants. It takes time. They're growing. Don't be like, why isn't it all here right now? I'm going to go get more plants because it's not filling out my plants. So it's helping me learn how to be more patient.
Mm-hmm.
And take a step back. And then I also am not getting overwhelmed. But I'll come down and talk. Like, I took my plants out for a field trip yesterday.
Yeah.
Because I have a little flat of my little seedlings. But it was so gorgeous out. It was like 70. And I wanted to get everything ready for spring. But then the next day it's not 70.
Yeah. You took them out to get some actual sunshine.
Actual sunshine, actual rain. So we took them out for a field trip. So I'm learning how to... I'm sorry. Anyone that knows me, the words that are next going to come out of my mouth, I'm learning how to slow down and think before I act, which it took me 45 years.
Always learning.
That's been the phrase that I've heard most of my life. Christine, you need to slow down and think.
Yeah.
So
and sometimes you do need to do that. So
finally getting there. But that's really, the garden is my real excitement. My working out, I'm doing that on a regular basis.
Good.
Helps that the gym is right there at work. I really have, the only excuse would be me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I could always argue in my head and just go do something, and then I'll get going. My learning, I've taken a step back from my bird classes, because now I'm kind of all in on the gardening.
Okay.
A spirited life, editing and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
I have not been as on top of that one because when I tried to do it, me and my computer did not get along.
Mm-hmm.
Then I also struggled with work time, downtime, making time to be able to help edit and do shorts of that nature. So those are works in progresses.
Right. And that comes back to sometimes where figuring out where everything fits in and making sure we have a reasonable amount of things that we're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes if we realize that we're still biting off too much, okay, maybe we need to dial back our expectations even more and say, okay, what do I really need to focus on? What is the most important or the highest priority things? And sometimes that means doing less. And sometimes that means saying, hey, you know what, originally I thought I was going to try and do X, Y, and Z, but I'm not being successful in those things. And so therefore, I may need to take a step back and just commit to trying to do X. Mm-hmm. And maybe just doing X is good enough right now, given all the other things that I have to do that's taking up my time. And that's one of the things that I'm looking at is to say, okay, do I need to be doing less or trying to do less? And where is my time going? Because I'm looking at some of the goals that I set up. Financial goals are okay overall. Mm-hmm. Like hit a lot of the goals that wanted to hit on there. We did go over budget a little bit because of our trip to Florida. But like that was actually a reasonable thing. And we did that intentionally. Mm-hmm. So we had talked about, hey, if we do overspend here a little bit, is that all right? Are we comfortable with that overspend on this particular trip? And the answer is yes. Like when's the next time we're going to be in St. Augustine? When's the next time we're going to have the opportunity to maybe buy one of the bottles that we were able to buy and spend some money on? Like we were able to flex that way and make an intentional choice. And we've also set ourselves up a cushion to be able to accommodate that if we really, really need to. Mm-hmm. But we did, and we were really intentional about pushing over that budget in that way in terms of making an adjustment and making a change.
You were talking stuff about taking on too much and the realizing sometimes you have to do less.
Yeah.
I realized, so I was we have the big wall calendars and I've been tracking things. I've also started realizing I was tracking. Now I write my work hours. Mm-hmm. I write when something comes up, like we had brunch with your parents. Mm-hmm. I went down to visit my brother. Yep. I write down all the things I'm doing, even if it's like I spent half a day doing chores on this room. Like this room got a deep clean today. So I'm seeing in those days, I'm still doing a lot. So it doesn't look like if I'm not checking off that little box of, well, I didn't stretch and I didn't do my journal, but I'm still doing all these other things. So I'm still got a lot going on.
Yep.
I'm not being lazy.
Right.
So it's just reminding me of how much I'm doing and maybe sometimes the do less aspect of it. But it really opened my eyes when I started writing down just notes about what I've been doing. I'm like, oh no, I'm actually pretty busy. So I can't beat myself up because sometimes things come up like brunch with your parents or things like that weren't maybe originally in my plan.
Right.
But you need to take advantage of those opportunities.
Absolutely. And you talking about this actually reminds me of something that I wrote down up on my board recently in terms of helping people understand how they think about time. And what's funny is it's in the nomenclature, but we don't even think about it this way until you call it out.
Is this going to be another mind-blowing thing like shooting to the moon?
Yes, this is going to be one of those things. Are you ready? Spending time.
Like freaking spending money.
You got it.
You only have a finite and then you spend it and you don't have any more to give. Like
correct. And so
we
time
always say is like, and they always say, what's your time worth? But literally every day I'm giving, it's like a currency.
It is absolutely like a currency, and it's a non-renewable, I cannot get more of it currency. Oh, by the way, here's the other part of it.
My brain is going to hurt so bad.
Here's the other part of it. You're paying attention. When you're paying attention, you're paying with a currency of your time. You're spending time paying attention. So you are paying attention. Attention is also a resource, right?
Oh, and I only got a finite amount of that.
I agree. I'm the same way. But it's so funny because it's
so you can't just keep giving and giving and giving because it's finite.
Correct.
You can't. I can't. Oh.
Right. And so we have to spend a little bit of our time paying attention to where our time is going so that we spend that resource in the ways that we want to. And that was something I wrote down in a completely different context.
Where did you learn this? You're a smart person.
I just actually paid attention the other day when I was thinking about
spending time. I've never even thought about it that way.
Yeah. And it just occurred to me that like based on the words, it's like, oh yeah, we are talking about spending time because I was thinking about time as a resource. And then I said that in the context and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's why we say that.
So when I'm thinking about purposefully spending my money.
Correct.
And where that's going to go and making sure that I get the best bang for the buck or the best value, or I'm okay with whatever I'm spending it on, even if it's maybe not the best value.
Mm-hmm.
I need to think about my time in the same way I think about my dollars.
Absolutely. Because the old adage, time is money, is true.
Oh my gosh.
Is true. They are forms of resources. And to some degree, you can buy more time with money.
Because if you're not working, that gives you more time for you to choose how to spend your time.
Correct. And so this is one of the reasons why a lot of people will spend money to get their time back. There are certain things that they don't want to spend their time doing. This is why people hire. This is why
like
people hire cleaners.
We could easily fix this. It'll take us like 5 hours to do it, but it'll be like $50. But if we pay a little more, someone else is going to do it, and we have that time. So we're not. Oh my gosh!
Mind blown?
I think I just heard a muscle in my brain.
Okay, good. I mean, that's not good. I hope you're okay. But I'm good that it's like.
No, that was like
resonating. So
that's crazy, and that is something that like we say that phrase. So literally, it went from shooting to the moon, shoot for the moon. That kicked it. Like we say that all the time.
Yeah.
Audacious goal. Now spending money.
Spending
time.
Paying attention.
Paying it.
Yep. There you go. So, fun stuff. But part of that is that I in my financial goals, in my health goals, my learning goals, I need to be paying attention to where I'm spending my time because I have not made as much progress on some of those things as I wanted to. Mm-hmm. And halfway through the month, I realized that I had not made that intentional change the way I wanted to in terms of taking more action. And as much as I hate to admit this, I am someone who does really well with having structure.
And you don't like structure.
I really don't like structure, but I know that it helps me get to the outcomes the way that I want to get to them. And so therefore that's why I will do it. So can I be like my operational nerdy self for a minute?
Get on your nerdy self.
Okay. Would you be willing to do an experiment with me?
On camera?
I mean, maybe, but we're not talking about anything dirty.
Okay, then yes, I'm good.
Okay. We're talking about trying something out and designing that time that we have where we will redesign and recommit to what we're doing. We can design a time for us to talk about our goals for the day and our goals for the week, and we can recommit to that and commit to each other. So we hold each other accountable to make sure that that happens.
So we're designing a redesign?
So, well, we're redesigning is what we're doing.
So I'm just going to repeat this so I fully understand before I say yes.
Okay.
We're going to find a time to sit down.
Yep.
Together.
Or stand up or lay down or whatnot. I don't know that we need to sit down.
Okay.
Sorry,
Are we having a walking meeting?
We could, actually, if you want. It's fine.
But we're going to redesign our time.
Yes.
Okay.
We are going to redesign specifically. We are going to redesign when we are doing our check-ins every day and every week.
So but our check-ins are not going to be the same if it doesn't work, or are we going to have the same check-ins?
We are going to get together in the morning.
Someone's going to have to get up earlier.
I know.
That's not me.
This is a change that I need to do. So I am going to have to get up earlier so I can spend some time.
That's true.
I'm just talking 15 minutes a day.
Okay. Cause we got to talk about that too. Cause I already have to talk about getting myself up at 5:45 to do the stuff I need to do.
Okay.
Before I go to work.
Okay.
We'll discuss it. But yes, I'm for that.
But what I'm saying is let's get together each morning and let's just talk about what the goals are for the day.
Oh, what a cute relationship
I know.
builder. Oh, right? It's almost like we like each other.
Oh my God.
Oh.
It's amazing.
Okay, no, I'm cool.
And then we do that on a daily basis. And then on a weekly basis.
Okay.
We also talk about, hey, what do we have upcoming for the week? What are the things that I need to focus on? What are the potential hurdles that I might need help with?
How can I support you? How can you support me?
You got it.
Okay. Cool.
The reason why I say this is like my operational nerdy self is because this is the stuff that we do at work. And that's how we make sure that we stay on track and that we accomplish our goals and everything like that. And now people are going to be like, oh my gosh, so you're going to do the stuff that you do at work at home? Like actually.
But you've been very successful at work, so I'm going to go with it.
Yeah. So the answer is to get to the outcomes that we want, the way that we want to, and everything like that, because financial goals are doing okay. Health goals, I was going in definitely the wrong direction. Realized that I hadn't taken the action. I've gotten better and realized that I needed to start working on that. I did get back to tracking my food on a daily basis. I did get back to tracking my weight on a daily basis. That is back to going in the right direction after heading in the wrong direction for a while.
So it's almost like you just have to make sure that that is in the forefront of your mind. And just even having it in the forefront.
Yes.
You go in the correct direction that you would like it to go.
You got it. Then also being able to look and say, hey, for my learning goals, how much time am I spending reading? Same type of thing. I realized that I wasn't spending the time that I wanted to. Guess what I started doing? Started making just a little bit of time to spend time reading 15 to 20 minutes right before bed. And that actually has worked out really well. The only problem is I start to fall asleep.
I was going to say, how can you do that? Because I would fall asleep and I'd be like, I already struggle remembering what I read when I'm wide awake. To be I'd be reading the same 3 pages for like 2 weeks.
Well, so what I did was when I do start to fall asleep, I realize that, and either I stop right there or I finish reading up to the end of the chapter. And luckily the book that I'm reading right now, the chapters are relatively short, so that's pretty easy to do.
Okay. I'm impressed though. I struggle with reading and comprehension. on a good day.
This is also reading for fun right now. This is not like book reading for work. This is like fun reading.
Yeah.
William Gibson.
Well,
type stuff.
I'm still kudos because I still, even with reading for fun, I struggle with comprehension. I'm curious to go back to my like school test scores and see if I failed those miserably because I don't remember stuff.
As a quick aside, when it comes to reading for comprehension that way, I know that I enjoy the stories that I read when I read them, but I can't go back the way that some people can and talk about the details of the stories. Not when it comes to like enjoyable books that I read, for fun. When it comes to learning for work and things like all that stuff sticks. All that stuff.
Okay, now I don't feel that bad. Like I read it and I'll be like, I have friends that'll be like, oh, and this book and then this stuff. And then I'll be like, oh, I didn't read that book. And I'll start reading it. I'm like, oh, no, actually, I did read that book. I don't know why. I don't remember any of this.
Yeah, and I'm sure that there's some sort of phenomenon. If you know what that phenomenon is and you're listening to this on YouTube, tell us in the comments what that is. Because I don't know what it is, but I'm sure that it's a thing.
Is it like where when I read a book and there's like a name that's not a typical name and I don't know how to pronounce it? Like I don't even sound it out in my head. I just see it and that's the name. Like in one of the Terry Goodkind, what was it? Khlan or whatever. I can't remember. I couldn't even tell you what her name is in
Kalan?
Yeah. No. I just see the name and go, okay, that's her name.
Mm-hmm.
I don't try to sound it out. I couldn't pronounce it, but I know if I see that, that's her name.
Sometimes when I read, and this is getting kind of deep into the reading thing, so but sometimes when I read, like I can just read and I'm just like my eyes are just scanning, but then sometimes I will actually start reading to myself in my head, and then I slow way down, and I'm like, dang it. But then I can't get out of that mode of reading to myself inside my own head because the voice in my head has to read all the words. It's so weird.
That's what I have to do when I learn things. I have to, and it's really hard to, for reading, it's really hard to get that voice in my head to go. That voice in my head is there for lots of other things, but for learning, I have to get that kicked in. For everything else, if I read it, like I'll enjoy it. Great stories, love it, get emotionally attached, but then it's like, whoosh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was a nice tangent.
Yeah, it was a great tangent. But what it boils down to is that when I look back, like financial goals, numbers are good, except for the intentional spending over otherwise. The other two, I need to do something different, and I need some sort of experiment to try out. And having the accountability with you, I think will go a long way to not only helping myself, but helping you and giving us a way to do this together where we have some accountability back towards each other. We're talking about it, and it's relevant to both of us as well. So it's something that's relevant to me. It's relevant to you. We understand that we're supporting each other, so we have a vested interest in doing it. So just to round this out, the experiment that we're going to try this month and the change that we're going to try is we're going to try getting together on a daily basis and on a weekly basis. And we are going to go ahead and talk about what the goals are for the days and for the weeks. And that's also our opportunity to talk about our progress for each one of those days and weeks. So let's give that a try for the month of March. And then when we get to the end of this month, we can talk about how well that did or didn't go and how much it helped us or hurt us or how that experiment went.
That works.
Cool. And I think that's a good enough experiment for what we're trying to understand with the overall outcome of we're trying to improve getting to the outcomes of our goals, which is a little meta, but I think most people can understand that.
Yeah, I agree.
Cool. Anything else about goals for this month? Anything else from a learning perspective that you want to touch base on?
In a weird way, so I think where I'm at, it's lining up where I am at in my life. Like I'm midlife. Next phase, I'm a hag.
Okay.
So I'm realizing I have to change a lot of things. Like when you're young and you're like, oh yeah, we're 22. Like we'll go out till 2 a.m. and then we'll get up and we'll go to work and we'll work all day and then we'll just take a little nap and we'll do it all over again. And like, that was cool and you could do it. And then all of a sudden you get older and you're like, I can't do that.
Yeah. This ain't that anymore. This ain't that.
I think I'm hitting in the thing, like with the whole really focusing on what I'm eating. Like I've been very lucky. I've never struggled with worrying about my weight. I've also been very active for the most part. So that's never been a big worry on at the forefront of my mind. I think it's just like learning to settle down and slow down.
Mm-hmm.
Again, not something I've normally had to deal with. So I think I'm at a tipping point where I'm realizing I can't keep being old Christine and expect that to keep going, because Christine is changing whether Christine wants to or not.
Yeah.
And so I need to either adjust and realizing, my energy level's changing, my body's changing, my hot flashes are changing, like all these other things that are happening, that I can't keep being what I was in my 20s and 30s and think that it's going to be the same. So I'm kind of in I guess I'm in a midlife crisis.
You're in the midlife crisis without the crisis.
I am. I'm to the point where I realize, okay, so if I want to lose this weight, if I want to get back to being close to the shape that I used to be,
mm-hmm.
I have to not only pay attention to making sure I'm working out effectively, but that I'm paying attention to what I'm eating. Yeah. And that's never been, I've burned off all the things I've eaten before. So now it's kind of it sounds stupid because I know people are like, oh, I wish I, had that problem. But it's to the point where I'm realizing I can't keep my old habits and want the goals and the outcomes that I want.
Yeah. So I appreciate the fact that you're acknowledging all of this. And this is going to be the topic that we're going to talk about in our next episode, which is getting into midlife and getting into a different season of life, and how you don't just go through a big change when you're in, your youth, and then you transition into puberty and there's a big change there,
mm-hmm.
right? That doesn't just happen once. That actually happens a couple times throughout
mm-hmm.
our lives. And being able to talk about how we need to make some of the adjustments and changes
mm-hmm.
going forward as we hit, and we are in the midst of going through maybe that other change that's happening,
mm-hmm.
and how we make adjustments and changes for that. And even just acknowledging the fact that that is a thing that happens.
Yeah, I am right there with you. I am on top of it, because it's a lot of things oh yeah, so puberty, all that other stuff that we went through. But now I'm oh, I can't just drink this pop because my old 80-year-old self wants me to try to do good, so that when I'm 80, I don't have lots of broken bones, because my bones don't have density.
Mm-hmm.
And that was not something you worried about when you were younger.
You got to take care of yourself today for your future self tomorrow.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I'm kind of on that tipping point where I really need to have a moment where I sit down with myself and say, okay, if you want to have these outcomes and you want to make these changes, things need to change.
I will leave it at that. So every episode, we like to take a few minutes to talk about what filled our spirits this week. Christine, what filled your spirit this week?
Other than Irish spirits filling my spirit this week, I had a blast. I went down to Columbus,
mm-hmm.
one, to catch up with some of the extra Irish spirit stuff. But then my brother lives outside of Columbus, so I spent the afternoon with my brother and my nephew. And it was just a lot of fun just to hang out and be silly and be goofy and do all that fun stuff. How about you?
Yeah, so I think for me, the big thing that really filled my spirit this week was getting out and spending time with friends at the OHLQ Cask and Craft event. So we went out and we met up with several different friends there.
Mm-hmm.
And we spent the whole time from 12 to 2. And then we went out and had lunch afterwards. So we got a chance to try some different pours. It was, for one of my friends, his first time going and experiencing an event like that. And he likes to get out and explore those kinds of things. And so he kept on remarking and saying, this is so much fun. I'm having such a good time. And I know that he really enjoys, and what really fills his spirit is getting time to spend with friends and
mm-hmm.
new experiences. So for him, it was great. And we also got a chance to see, our other friends, our neighbors. Yeah. Joe and Callie. And so they aren't literal neighbors. They don't live next door, but they are in the area, and they were our literal neighbors on one of the other events that we went to. They were in the hotel room next door. And so we now affectionately refer to them as our neighbors.
Because we were the rowdy neighbors.
So, but it was nice to get to spend time with them and just hang out. Also got a chance to see Cam. He was able to get there, and then we went out and we had lunch with Joe and Callie and Eric afterwards, and just getting a little bit more time to catch up and get together was really great. I really enjoyed it, and it was a lot of fun, even though it was busy. Like, there was a lot of people at the event, but once it started to thin out a little bit, it was really cool. Really enjoyed hearing some of the different stories. Like you said, talking to some of the distillers and hearing their stories. And if you watch our short, it's so funny because the one part of the short, you can actually see where the one person says to somebody who's asking a question, well, why don't you ask him? He's the distiller.
Sir Morris.
Yeah. And it's because they were there repping their own things. And he was talking about the grains from his own lands and how that went into his whiskey. It was super cool.
Yeah, I think that was the coolest part of that event. That's everything we have for this week. What are we going to talk about next?
So next week, we alluded to this a little bit in the episode. We're going to talk a little bit about the transition into midlife and how that doesn't necessarily mean that you're not able to live a spirited life. It just may look a little bit different than it had originally. Talking about some of those changes as we get a little bit older, but still taking the opportunity to live well. And so in the meantime, we hope you live a spirited life. The topics and information on a spirited life should not be taken as financial advice and should be considered for entertainment purposes only.